expenses, cost of living, healthcare, and it's not free. Raising children. Are you afraid to become an adult? Hi, I'm Tyreek, a professional adult. And to help you out, I decided to interview a bunch of adults to see what their fears and experiences with adulthood are. To get to the bottom of this. Where does this fear come from? Is it justified? Is being an adult actually as bad as we think it is? Get over here! Am I actually passionate about this topic, or am I doing it because user-ADRSilva123 asked me to? Twice. Well, clearly it's because... Now, in order to test this comment's hypothesis and determining where adulthood falls on the overrated or underrated scale, we have to take into account the genuine fears people have about adulthood before entering the adult world. Obviously, growing older is something that's inevitable for everyone, and it's not as if you can stop time and wait until you're ready before you can move on. However, this doesn't mean that there aren't still people who feel unprepared for this next step in life. So much so that they claim to hate their adult life and wish they could be a kid again. But after doing this case study, I found out that the number one reason we're scared of adulthood is
responsibility,
increased responsibilities,
not knowing what you're doing,
figuring it out.
When you're an adult, every decision you make is so important.
I guess not being successful.
Yes.
just feeling like you're kind of a sham and like you're an imposter in whatever role you're doing.
Aha! Just as I thought. It seems as though the fear of responsibility is what stops some people in their tracks. Coming from a childhood and teenage years where most of us were fortunate enough to have our responsibilities taken care of by our parents and guardians, it's normal for us to feel a sense of imposter syndrome because we all have no idea what we're doing in the beginning. But I still wanted to know what exactly about responsibility makes people look down and over-hate on adulthood. You know what's funny? The last time I did something like this, I gave baby boomers the spotlight. But now, it's time for Gen Z. First up on the chopping block, we have a young adult himself and a New York City native who recently started his career. And besides trying to find out what he was hiding under that do-rag, I wanted to know, why do people seem to have less joy once they become an adult? So I asked him, and here is his response.
Everyone has things in their life they have to take care of, whether or not it's your job, whether or not you have kids, and it's kind of not really anybody else's job to do it for you, so you have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet and handle your own responsibilities. I remember that SpongeBob episode where it was the guy just getting up, driving to work, sitting in the cubicle, driving home, going to bed. So like when you're young and you don't have any responsibility, you're hanging out with your friends, you have more time to explore life. But when you're an adult, so much of your time is taken up by going to work every day, having to handle, errands and chores. And then if you have children, you have to devote time to them. It's like you lose a lot of your own personal time as you become an adult, and you get kind of stuck in this mundane routine of work, home, school, work, home, school, basically every day.
And that does seem to be the case. Not everyone, but the one thing a lot of people seem to dread about adulthood is the idea that once they start their 9-to-5 careers, that's probably going to be it for the next 40 years. No real variety in the 8 hours of your day unless you switch careers ever so often. And you hope to God that at least you enjoy your job, or else you'd literally be slaving away for a paycheck until you retire. And speaking of retirement, let's meet Bubbles, a young woman who recently moved to New York City in order to pursue her career. And I wanted to know exactly what her thoughts were on retirement and her confidence in her ability to retire in today's world. And so, here's what she had to say.
I don't know if retirement's gonna look the same like for our generation. Social Security is not gonna last until we're that age. So I know that that means that there will be some big changes. So I feel like that makes me hesitant to invest like money I need now in something that I'm not really sure is gonna exist the same way when I'm that age. I feel like it's less common now to have a traditional retirement. Like it's only people that are really like in a corporate job for a long time that have that sort of traditional 65 retirement. And even people that like my parents work with, I know are still working and they've passed 65. Yeah, I don't know if like retirement is gonna look the same, and that definitely stresses me out a little bit because I'm just like, do you just work and have to like base your life around work your entire life?
Unfortunately, she is not alone in her fear. A 2023 Social Security survey states that 75% of adults 50 and up believe that Social Security funding will run out in their own lifetime. Meaning, if we as a younger generation are not diligent with saving now, working past retirement age may be a reality for a lot of people. And judging by the price of eggs these past couple years, saving is looking like it's easier said than done. Man, that sucks. Oh, what's this? It's a little scale I made that'll help us for the rest of the video. Wow, nice chart. So wait, why is your face on? From now on, we'll be taking the fears and experiences we hear from the people we interview, plugging them into this scale, and determining whether or not adulthood is closer to being underrated or overrated. And I'll be honest, ADR Silva, my brother, I don't mean to disappoint you, but so far with the money and retirement argument, it's starting to look just a little bit closer to the overrated side for now. Because that might change before the end of this video. Who knows, we might interview someone that will give us a whole new perspective to consider. For example, let's talk to my main man, Utonium, a college student studying criminal justice who couldn't be any more excited to graduate in a few years to fully explore the adult world. And I wanted to know, what has him this excited?
When I started approaching like 18, I was more excited, like I was ready. I felt like I was gonna get a lot more freedom. While you are taking on a lot more responsibility, you're responsible for a lot more things that you do. So like the choices you make, you can really make a choice that can drastically benefit your future, and it's not up to like your parent anymore. It's really up to you to do what you want to do. The little bit of the freedom that you get as an adult, I feel like that it's very underrated, like how much control you have. A lot of people don't realize it. You can do what you want.
Freedom. The freedom as an adult to choose how you want to live your life on your own terms without an adult telling you what to do. A very, very underrated thing. So underrated, in fact, that we can now take this scale and cross it over to the other side. However, freedom does have a price, and that's when I took the opportunity to ask Blossom and Buttercup. Once again, they are college students who are brand new to the adult world themselves. And with that knowledge in mind, I needed to know what concerns them the most as a new adult, specifically from a cost standpoint.
The cost of living, especially being a college student, because sometimes, you know how we can apply for financial aid and stuff like that, it doesn't always help, and sometimes it doesn't like cover as much as the cost as you need, and then it's hard to find jobs. Like it's extremely hard to find jobs right now. So it's like another money issue, like inflation. It's a big problem now. Rises in rent prices. It's making it hard to find apartments, much less jobs. It's always going to be a fear in the back of my head, like how am I going to find a job? I need to stay in school. It's like a process.
I guess not being successful. It's just always looming in the back of my head, like I'm not gonna make it to where I need to be.
Where do you feel like that fear comes from?
Probably the way most of us have like grown up, or what we've seen growing up. I had family members who said they wanted to become doctors, went to school for all this stuff, and then in the end, that's not what they ended up doing. Like it's a scary thing to think about.
Yet again, another common fear amongst new and existing adults in today's world. We live in a world where money is the foundation of how we sustain a lifestyle. However, new adults worry about their ability to sustain a living independent of their parents due to the rising cost of everything.
Working families across Sydney have been hit the hardest by cost of living increases over the last.
Manchester is now so expensive that students like Ella have had to leave the city. She now has a long commute.
Restored to housing and transportation. Prices were 3.1% higher in January compared to a year ago, which was worse.
$2 freaking. This was $200.
We supposed to skip the power bill this month so we can buy groceries, or the mortgage?
Couple that with the fear of not getting the career that you want, even with a college degree. New adults do have a reason to be concerned. Now, of course, there are way more fears that people have about adulthood that aren't as obvious as others. Like loneliness.
Maintaining friendships is a little bit harder in adulthood because everybody has schedules now. Everybody is working now. For a lot of people, after they have kids or after they get their job, maintaining friendships becomes second, and some people become either completely consumed by their jobs or completely consumed by their families.
Cost of housing.
House buying is very far in my future, if ever. Where am I going to live? Am I going to rent my whole life? Am I going to be able to buy a house? Do I want to buy a house? Do I need to buy a house? A lot of people are talking about like, I'm never going to be able to afford a house.
And whatever traumas that they may have experienced as a child that makes them dread experiencing that same thing again once they become an adult. But despite all of this, I'm sure that this scale will prove that adulthood is still an overall underrated experience. That can't be right. According to this scale, adulthood is still closer to being overrated than anything else. Sorry guys, give me a second. But the video that ADR Silva requested was supposed to be why adulthood is underrated. Did I mess up? How could I have gotten so off track? And this video is supposed to be out by Saturday. Can I even interview enough people in time to tip this scale? What in God's name can I do? What? A new challenger? Who the heck could that be? Now, like most things, the specific experience of adulthood varies person to person. But, as we saw in Chapter 1, there are some common worries we all share. Unfortunately, however, there's not a definitive rulebook on how to adult. But, I figured the next best thing would be for me, a professional adult myself, to ask other adults with decades of experience how they were able to navigate adulthood. And with this new knowledge, we will be able to definitively answer whether being an adult is overrated or underrated. And finally give @user-ADRsilva123 the video he requested. Let's do this.
What's your biggest problem that you face now as an adult that you didn't have to when you were a teenager or a lot younger?
Money. Trying to find myself, trying to find like a direction. Staying out of trouble, you know, those kind of things.
Did you have any fears going into adulthood?
Oh yeah.
No, I look forward to it. I wanted to go out in the world.
Yeah, I had the responsibilities of, you know, paying your bills and things like that. You know, that was kind of scary. Fears are always there, you know, because you're entering into this new territory, which is quote unquote adulthood, and you don't know what's in, you know, what's in store.
I was more afraid of fitting into society. I have ALS, neuromuscular disease, and there's really no treatment.
It's basically fear of, okay, what's my next step? You know, so you take one step, then you take another step, and which will gradually lead you into, again, that quote, unquote, adulthood.
This is a common saying. Your problems are small. You think they're big, but they're really not. As you grow up and live, you have problems and you have good times. And you learn to go through it.
So profound. What a wonderful quote from Deborah. By the way, isn't she like the most adorable person you've ever seen? Real quick, I'm gonna send this video over to her. Can we spam the comments with "We love Deborah" to surprise her? She deserves it. But now that we've gotten a little insight on their fears, this is the part where we ask how they were able to navigate adulthood and any advice they would give to new adults who have similar fears. And here's what they had to say.
Growing up in, you know, tough neighborhoods in Manhattan, Lower East Side, Spanish Harlem, it was always a matter of, you know, am I going to survive, you know, psychologically, mentally, physically. Having mentor or mentors along the way is very helpful because they've already been there. I think anything that you get into, I feel that you need somebody that's already been there. Yeah. They know the rules, they know, you know, what to avoid. Know what you want, do the right thing, look out for loved ones, be respectful, you know, and don't stress it.
I find today's teens have a difficult transition from living at home to being an adult.
Why do you think that transition from teenager to adult today is difficult?
We don't want our children to suffer for 1 minute. We try to take care of everything, and it's not fair to the children.
Take risks. You know, everyone's afraid. You know, if someone tells you that they're not afraid, I believe they're lying. Because there's many fears of different sorts. Everyone's afraid of something or other.
I think parents have trouble saying it's your turn. You have to grow up.
Many times we feel I'm the only one that's afraid, I'm the only one who has fears. But if you say, okay, everyone has these fears, okay, what's the difference between failing and succeeding? Is many times just, okay, acknowledging that you have the fear. Because if you don't acknowledge it, the fear is gonna grow bigger and bigger and bigger. If you acknowledge it and you talk to it, you know, like a friend, I think you have a better chance.
Frustration is a good thing. Let them be angry and disappointed. It is not your job to take away their opportunity to grow.
You know, it was great learning from these older adults because although there's no definitive answer on how to get rid of the fear of adulthood, and although concerns like how you'll find a good paying job or how we'll be able to navigate the future economy are valid and things they likely won't be able to answer, it's great to know that these worries and concerns aren't unique to any one person or generation. But it wasn't just the older generation that had this positive outlook.
Do you believe adulthood overall is overrated or underrated?
Say it's underrated.
Underrated. Say like everything is just like rated.
I feel like it's as it should be.
But then with adulthood, like you have your own sense of personality. You're able to go out and explore the way that you wanted to and see the world through your eyes.
But I guess what's underrated about adulthood, again, is like you don't have anybody, well, your parents over you telling you like you can't do this, you can't go here, you can't do this.
Kind of like realize that you have just a little bit more freedom, a little bit more ability to steer your own life.
Oh, I want to take on my career and finally get to explore the world.
Because I feel like people complain a lot, but it can actually be kind of fun to solve challenges and get over stuff and know that you did that for yourself.
It's not going to be all fun and games, and it's not going to be all bad stuff. You know, it's a balance, and then once you find that balance, that's when you can start enjoying it, you know? Like, you need to have bad to know what good feels like.
After talking to everyone, I guess the secret is to find joy in your adulthood, not from your lack of worries and fears, but in spite of them. So, on the topic of whether adulthood is overrated or underrated, I guess the answer is